I don't know how the hell they keep doing it, but somehow this franchise just keeps delivering. Alright, hey guys, back again with another movie, and I'm actually using natural lighting today because I decided to open up blinds and not be a weird hermit. So today we're talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, for context, before I get into this one, it should be noted that I'm actually a big fan of the previous three movies that preceded this. I haven't watched all the classics yet. It is definitely, I'll watch it eventually, but I did love the last trilogy of films with Andy Serkis as Caesar. I thought they were, from beginning to end, obviously Rise of the Planet Apes was the weakest of the three, but it was still pretty good, and the other two just surpassed it and really just got away with a lot, considering this is still a blockbuster franchise. This movie obviously came out quite later, takes place 300 years after the events of War on the Planet of the Apes, so at this point, ape society has had more time to evolve and expand, so it obviously has a new main character whose name is Noah, who lives in this kind of ape village that really utilizes eagles as, pets, hunters, stuff and just whatever resource you can use. I almost said owls, eagles for. That's kind of what they've built their whole society around. Noah is the chief's son. The chief is this very proud, stoic kind of ape, and obviously has high expectations for his son, and he has a couple other friends that he has this whole kind of posse going on. Everything's kind of thrown into whack when they find a human has snuck into their village, which attracts the attention of another band of apes who are hunting the human, which eventually leads them to a kingdom of apes led by Proxima, who is also played by Kevin Durant, I think his name is, the same guy who's in Abigail, a movie I talked about a couple days ago. And from there, it turns into basically kind of a heist film. And I don't want to go too much into why that is, because I don't want to give away spoilers, but yeah, that's basically the long and short of it. Yeah, it is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, who is, by the way, really making this work. The promotion material has definitely been pushing this villain a lot. The Planet of the Apes movies, with the exception of Rise, have had just a reputation of really good villains, and this one definitely continues the thread. Like Koba in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is really good. The Colonel from War of the Planet of the Apes is also great, played by Woody Harrelson. And now we have Proxima, who is this larger-than-life ape who sees himself as a king and has used Caesar's words back when he was alive, obviously, and kind of weaponized them to create this kind of cult of personality. His whole thing is he wants to get this big door open, this old, what I think it was described as a basically just this gigantic bunker door that he really wants to get open because he thinks that whatever's inside is going to help him expand his kingdom. Noah and the human, a bunch of other people want to stop him, and that's the basic plot. So, on the whole, again, Planet of the Apes is such a fascinating franchise because there's so many reasons why it shouldn't work, and somehow they keep finding a way to make it work. Now, whether or not you think this is better or worse than the previous trilogy movies, I'm not even sure. It obviously invites comparison because it is a direct continuation, but at the same time, I also don't really know if it's fair to compare the two, at least not in its entirety, because it is going for two very different feels. The original trilogy of Planet of the Apes movies, not the original, but you know what I'm talking about, was very much about the evolution of the society. And while this one is literally centuries into that evolution, so things are just different. The ape communication is more sophisticated. The use of language is more evolved. The way they have written their own history and their own culture and their own mythology has evolved. There's one character who I really liked that Noah runs into pretty early on. His name is Raka, played by Peter Mackin. And he kind of serves as this almost religious, not historian. But even then, like some of the way the knowledge he has on Caesar and how society worked back in his days is a little twisted. It's like there's definitely some myth and some mythologizing, if that's a word, that goes into his perception of the world. And I like that. I think it's a very nice touch. And it does feel like it reflects how history tends to develop over the centuries. I like that parallel. I like that development. And that kind of goes over to all the other characters too. There is a genuine sense of evolution, and it feels like this is a natural direction for this franchise to go into. And if this is leading up to a new trilogy or new series of films, which I hope it does, Noah is a good main character to hang that on. He's not as strong as Caesar, but again, Caesar was like one of the best blockbuster characters of the last decade, so it's really hard to match up to that, so I never really expected him to. But he has a lot of potential to to make a solid impact. He does have a good arc of realizing his own leadership potential, with a very satisfying climactic ending. That I won't go into, but if you've seen the actual final climax, the final confrontation between Noah and Proxima, which isn't a spoiler, you knew that was coming. It is incredibly satisfying climax to it, and honestly, probably my favorite final showdowns I've seen in a while. So I was very excited. I was very happy about that. I'm happy with how it ended. I'm happy with how this world has evolved and the new areas they're exploring with it. I think it's all very well done. The designs are obviously spectacular. The way they've created the culture around these apes and what they've designed for themselves is fascinating to watch. The acting is obviously top notch on pretty much everybody involved. I did find myself emotionally invested in these characters. I did find myself emotionally invested in this world. And I'm very curious to see what they'll do next with it. They clearly have more stories in mind. They clearly have more, I think my biggest, I don't want to say complaint necessarily, but things I wish there was more of. I do wish Proxima was in the film more, because as much hype as there is around him and his character, the character himself isn't actually in the movie that much. I think he doesn't even show up till at least an hour into the film. Now, granted, it's not necessarily a bad thing either, because it is a case where you can only justify the character appearing so many times until it stops making story sense. And this is a very slow burn, character-driven story. And that's why, and I think it's why a lot of these movies have worked, because the last movies kind of took that approach, with the exception of Rise. Even though never read Rise 2, I'll give it to Rise. But it is a slow, methodical build up to get to this kingdom. It makes sure that every action taken by these characters is justified by their internal motivations, and it makes sense. I have a feeling there was probably a lot that was cut in there, because this is a pretty lengthy movie. I think it's like 2.5 hours. So maybe Proxima is more in that. But that being said, the other characters are strong enough to stand on their own. And I like this theme of preventing the erasure of culture by being absorbed by larger entities, because that's kind of the whole thing with Proxima and Noah. Proxima kind of absorbs Noah's tribe, Noah's village, and all its inhabitants, and he erases what made their culture significant, which is the eagles. But Noah is in stark contrast to that. He embraces his cultural identity that he's developed with his family, and that is what helps him ultimately save the day. He works off of being more clever as opposed to being the strongest, which is what Proxima's deal is. So there's a lot of really interesting themes going on here. There's a lot of really good character work going on here. I'm really glad this franchise is back. I'm glad they made this into a movie, not a TV show, which I think was the original plan. Or maybe they still will make a TV show. I don't know. I gotta look it up later. But either way, this story works. It shouldn't work, but it does. And I'm very happy to see that remains to be the case. So I think that's all I really have to say about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I think it's an excellent film. I don't think it reaches the peak of the previous trilogy, but it's also the first entry in it. So this is definitely a case of let's see what I'm eager to see what they're cooking. So I think it's all I have to say about that. There's one more movie I want to cover before I'm officially done with this batch of films. As I mentioned previously, I did lose my job recently, so if you guys want to help me keep the lights on, the Patreon link is in the description. I'd really appreciate anything you can provide. In the meantime, I will have a lot more time in the near future to cover more movies that I missed over the course of the year so far. So keep an eye out for those. Until then, I'm going to see you all in the next review, which will be I Saw the TV Glow. Take care.